Alright, so I've got to ask, why make it bulletproof? I mean, you've got this weird ass design on a basically civilian truck. No one's really ever going to probably need this, at least I should hope they don't. Why make it bulletproof? And then Jay Leno, Elon looks at him, he's like, well, why not? In his exact quote, he asks him, he's like, well, it's badass, isn't it? That was his reasoning. It's just fucking badass. Like, yeah, that's the kind of guy that motherfucker is. And he's sending people up into space now. I mean, this is the same guy that the first thing he ever sent into space was his own car.
What?
That's an actual Tesla floating somewhere in space. I'm not even making this shit up.
What?
So, but the way he's sounding it is now he's been doing interviews. I mean, this is a pretty he kind of presents himself as an idiot, but this guy obviously he knows what the fuck he's doing because he just put someone into orbit successfully. So that kind of dictates that yeah, you definitely do know what you're doing. But he kind of presents himself as to be like the market idiot. That's kind of what I like about it. But he's been going on record about saying that this is just a test, and if this succeeds, then we're looking into doing other crazy shit. And this might just be the thing I've been waiting for years, because every single time, you know, I see space shuttles, old videos of space shuttles going into the air, rockets, and I'm always asking myself, like, why isn't this shit happening anymore? Why are we not doing space anymore? You never see anything about space anymore. NASA's basically gone under the radar. The last big thing we did was we made that space station. That was about it. Where's the development, guys? Aren't we supposed to get warp drives at some point? I'd love to see that.
Apparently, if we look at technology-wise, then we should actually be almost there when it gets to full drive as well.
Yeah, but this successful test today, this was the smoothest fucking rocket launch that the planet's ever seen. This was crazy, but this kind of confirms that yeah, this is the new dawn of space travel that we're going to be going into. This is the start of a whole new era. We basically started again the same way we did decades ago when we sent the first manned rocket into space. We just did that again, but 10 times more effectively. And from this point, we're picking it up again. We've already heard SpaceX talk about plans of actually going to Mars, which is obviously further than we've ever gone before. There's a couple of rovers driving around there, but nothing big or by any stretch of the imagination. No people. Well, that's definitely on the roadmap. They'll be sending more people to actually go and walk on the moon and potentially build an outpost. And this is the kind of shit I've been wanting to see. I wanna see new ideas. I wanna see us, actually go and explore the stars. Obviously everyone's wet dream is to be the one that goes and explores the stars, but I've got no delusions that we'll ever get that opportunity, but I still would love to witness it anyway. And I just watched two people, you could see them sitting in the rocket going into space, and that was just the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen. And the thing that stood out to me the most is how easy it looked. They just sat there. They didn't do anything because the whole rocket and the pod they were in was remote controlled and basically autonomous. Those two guys just sat there, pressing the occasional button. That's how easy it is nowadays. And this is just a start. So yeah, that was a pretty interesting watch, to say the least. And obviously the whole countdown from 10 to 1, and then you hear the ignition flip and that big ass fucking rocket shoots off into the stratosphere. Wow. Just wow. Get fucking goosebumps just thinking about it. I mean, part of me wants to be that guy sitting in the rocket going to space, another part of me really doesn't want to be that motherfucker guy sitting on that rocket.
I definitely don't want to sit there.
Like, holy fuck, dude. That would be crazy.
Yeah, I think I'd be too scared for that.
Yeah. I think I'd be Billy Big Steps, bragging about, yeah, I'm gonna fucking do it, but then when I'm actually sitting in the rocket, I'd be sweating bullets. Like, did I really want to do this? Probably not.
Well, you're at space anyway, Duncan.
Yeah.
I just press a button here and your chair just flies up.
Flies up, yeah. Yeah.
Like no spacesuit whatsoever.
Yeah, but yeah, still, I think we'll start seeing a lot more of this space stuff now that we're finally picking it up again, and I'm really interested in seeing where this will lead us. You know, how is this going to develop? Obviously, we've had the shuttle, we've had the rocket, but those two things kind of both work on the same principle. Whereas it's basically one big tank shooting up into the sky. It then detaches, and two other tanks pick up, and then they detach. And what actually leaves the planet is just the part in which the two astronauts are in. When are we really going to get a dedicated spacecraft that's going to be able to take up and then land without detaching any parts? It's going to be able to do that multiple times, just on its own. Are we going to see like the next thing, like a whole new design? From what it looks like now, we're definitely heading that direction, and that's the kind of shit I'm interested in. How accessible is space going to be? Like, are they actually going to, because obviously when actual spacecraft are developed and tested rigorously and ending up on the market, how accessible is it going to be? Because there used to be a time where just a plane ticket could cost you a fucking fortune, but by now it's the most common thing on the planet. People are flying everywhere all the time. It's basically a commercial thing now.
Yep.
There are people out there flying every single fucking day and they don't bat an eye. They think it's fucking boring sitting in 20 hours in a plane. I'd be excited as fuck every minute of it, because I've never really flown before. Technically I have, but that doesn't count.
Technically I have, but that doesn't count.
Well, I mean, it's been a while ago, so I don't remember most of it. And two, it was in this small propeller-driven Cessna, the normal kind of planes you see landing at small airports, the ones that basically the crop dusting kind of thing, but then a little bit then the modernized versions of it. Now, I've actually flown in one of those, and I've sat next to the pilot, and the pilot actually handed me the controls for a farce of that flight, which was the coolest experience of my life. Actually flying an airplane myself. That, of course, still cannot be compared in the slightest to an actual commercial jet plane. That's obviously a whole different league. But still, I can say that I have actually flown personally. That is cool as shit. But I still...
You have bragging rights.
Well, technically I do, but some kid in my class blew me out of the fucking chair. Because, well, here goes. I walked into school one day, pretty early on in the last year actually, when I got my new class. And you start meeting people and you start asking around, like, what are you into, what are your hobbies? Because I tend to be a kind of a social guy when I'm in my comfort zone, and that school is definitely my comfort zone, so I don't have a lot of trouble going and talking to people. And there was this one guy, Jeroen. Pretty strange guy. He doesn't really say an awful lot. But I noticed right off the bat that he has a lot of similar interests as I do, like military tactics or aerodynamics, airplanes, paintball, you name it, all that kind of, I'd say not nerdy shit, but the cool nerdy shit.
The things that I am scared of.
Basically, yeah. But so you kind of start asking questions back. He's like, how old are you? Like, how old do you think? He's like, 19. He's like, yeah, nope, that's a little young right there. Now, multiply that by 4 years, and you'll figure out I'm an old cretin, basically.
Yeah.
Which is kind of depressing, but oh well. But obviously I hit him with the amazing badass driver's license that I've got, because that's definitely a bragging right kind of thing when you're in high school or college or anything like that. Because most people, even the ones your age, usually don't have it. You'll be surprised to see how many people have it. I mean, you don't have one, and you're well over the age of actually getting it. But it's just not essential for most people at that current age group yet, so they don't really need it. I needed it at the time because I was doing the other school, and I actually needed to travel back and forth to my actual job, which was tens of kilometers away. At the moment, it's about as useless to me as tits on a fish, but hey, you never know, might come in use for one day. But yeah, at school, that's definitely something to brag about. Well, this kid basically takes my driver's license, shoves it up my ass, and then uppercuts me with his fist because he whips out his pilot's license. I was like, what? Excuse me, sir. He didn't have his driver's license yet, but he's qualified to fly a fucking airplane. Well, shit. Well, I just basically took my driver's license and ate it because that's not really worth shit anymore. This kid has a fucking pilot's license. Excuse me. What? So that's definitely one way to ensure that you'll be the coolest kid in class. Then again, yeah, he didn't really show up a lot. He didn't really spoke a lot. I'm pretty sure I was one of the only people who actually knew he had his pilot's license. And it wasn't a fully qualified pilot. He was still like in his training phase, but he was past the point of, you know, you're allowed to fly, but under supervision, so they give you the license. That was the kind of license he had. By now, I imagine he already has it. And I ask around, like that must have cost you a fucking fortune. It's like, yeah, my parents decided to pay it for me, obviously, because I sure shit don't have the money. I'll have to pay it back eventually, hopefully when I get the job that I want, you know, being a pilot. Like, yeah, that's pretty fucking cool. And you know, if your parents do have the financial ability to basically finance that, then yeah, all power to you. Wow, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. I wouldn't even dare ask this of my parents, like, hey, can you buy me a pilot's license? They'll probably kick me in the face. But
well, I don't think you can buy a license. I think you still need to earn it.
I mean, yeah, but you obviously need to earn it. But usually, when you start, you know, when you buy basically your access to a course, you usually end up getting it. You know, just like school, you're basically buying your diploma, even though you still have to work for it. It's not like you only have to work for it. Now you still have to invest money in it.
Well, yeah.
Sadly enough. But yeah, so that's one way to completely fucking ruin my confidence. Waving your pilot's license in my face, and it was doubly as painful because I remember as a child, my biggest ever dream was to be a pilot. That was my one goal during like elementary school and middle school and all that. Obviously, I very quickly noticed that because I was not in a good state of mind for most of those years of my life, didn't really put as much work in, wasn't ever motivated to really go to school or do anything there, so my grades really suffered, and I never really got to the level of education needed to become an actual pilot.
Yeah, no, eventually you were just dropped at my level.
Basically, yeah. Because I started off pretty goddamn high, but then kind of dropped it off. I'm picking it up now because the course I'll be doing after this is essentially the same level, one step below it actually, but oh well, it's fine.
You're going to be on the same level as me again.
Basically, yeah. You did it pretty quickly, but we'll still be. Yeah, we'll be ending at the same time, anyways. That's kind of cool. You got 1 year ahead of me, but because your course is 4 years and mine's actually 3, we'll end it at the same time.
Yep.
Which kind of makes us gets this whole like full circle kind of deal, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, even though like I've taken out I've been not going to school for like 3 years because of like my dad and such. Like then we still end up like at the same like time, like Jesus, at the same level as well.
Yeah, no, that's because obviously I did a lot of stuff in between that I never really finished, sadly enough.
But that wasn't
kind of ironic.
Wasn't your fault though.
Well, I mean, it's kind of. I mean, essentially, the first one, the one I spent the most time on, the sea thing, you know, where I was learning to actually, you know, sail a ship. That was one that I would have really liked to continue, but the school had other ideas. I wouldn't say that I was too on board with the idea to begin with, because I definitely had my fair share of complaints about the school and the people there. It was pretty obvious from the way I talk about this and the way I remember it that, yeah, I was definitely not having a good time there. That's pretty much only to blame on the actual teachers and the people in my class. I absolutely detested all of them. Absolutely, I didn't. There are obviously a couple of guys that I did like, but there were way too many absolute thunder cunts in there that every time I still think about them, I want to fucking punch a tree. Seriously, these guys piss me off to no end, and they, you know, and having to deal with that every single day, and then the teachers not just turning a blind eye to it, but actually helping them and bully the fuck out of me and depress the fuck out of me. That was such a fucking emotional train wreck. And I'm surprised still that I got far enough as I did. Any other guy would have fucking tossed the fucking blanket and gone home. Which, to be fair, I thought about a lot. But in between all that, it was the actual stuff that I was learning and doing that really interested me. When I started it, you know, I didn't really give a fuck about boats and you know, naval things. But you'll know now that that's definitely fucking changed. I've been getting really big into actual into naval stuff and boat stuff. Usually maritime navy stuff, you know, historical battleships, all that kind of cool stuff. But still, boats are boats. And if I got the ability to actually go out on the sea and sail around, I would do so. So that it is kind of depressing that all that torment kind of ended up being completely useless, a waste of time. If I knew that, I would have jumped. fun pun. Jumped ship quite a while ago. But no, I actually ended up wasting 3 years on that because in the end, the teachers, the school kind of admitted to their own mistake, where they basically kept telling us that the level that we were at, the Level 2 group, there really just wasn't a lot of work for us. Companies just weren't interested in Level 2 assholes, basically. And for the majority of my class, yeah, I know, most companies really wouldn't be interested in assholes like that. People that really didn't do shit other than smoke weed and punch the fuck out of other people and make you feel like ass. That's the kind of people I was dealing with. But yeah, most companies, they really wouldn't like that. I get that. But for the small selection of us that really didn't want to go through with it, we kind of still got, well, we didn't get the benefit of the doubt. Let's keep it like that. The companies, they weren't going to take the risk. So when I was looking for my internship, I found fucking nothing. Company after company, I think I must have sent them out more than the fucking 50 emails, and most of them didn't even reply, and the others, nope, I just got a straight up no. And that was for the majority of the class. I think it was one guy that managed to land an actual internship, but that was about it.
Wow.
And that was the future we were going into. Like that shit's not gonna change after you get your diploma. You're not gonna find work. There's just no company that wants you. Just from Level 3 and up, that's when you start getting interesting for those kind of companies. And that's the decision the school finally made, is to just terminate the course. And the way the school did this leaves a sour taste in my mouth every single time I think about it. Because there were obviously going to be there's a multiple selection of solutions here. One, and the option I would have preferred to go to, is basically they admit to the situation like, hey guys, this is not happening. We're going to give you the option to opt out and just go do something else, and for those that want to stay, we'll secure you a position in one of the Level 3 classes next year. Because, you know, we've already put in so much effort. To this day, it still feels unfair that they just ditched us the way they did. They just basically kicked us off the school, using, not even admitting to what's happening. They used bullshit excuses to kick us one by one. I still remember the last 2 weeks, every single day another kid was gone. And at first we just thought, we thought that they were all dropping out, but later we heard from most of them that they were kicked. Meanwhile, the teachers told us that they actually left, which is kind of contradictory. So then when I was finally called into the office and I got my bullshit excuse, like your grades aren't good enough even though they were, your attendance wasn't good enough even though it was. I mean, I was one of those weird kids. The three of us were eventually singled out because we went on these the week trips where we go on a boat and just sail around the country most of the time. At one point there wasn't enough slots, so me and 3 other kids, we were basically pulled out the group, like, you guys are not going. So we spent that week with an actual other class while the rest of my class was out having fun. In order to make up for that, we got this sailing trip on pretty well-known ship, an actual sailor ship, the one with 3 masts and massive sails on top of actual engines, onto the actual North Sea in the middle of a fucking storm. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh, I remember you telling me that, indeed.
Yeah, and that was probably the hardest fucking week of my life, but also one of the most exciting things I've ever done. When you actually, you hear those stories about those massive storms, but you never really believe them until suddenly you look out the fucking side of the ship in the pitch black midnight raining. You really don't see anything. When you're out on the sea and it's night, you don't see anything unless it's a clear night and the moonlight kind of reflects things for you. But if there's a cloudy sky, you can forget it. You could be sailing against a fucking rock and you wouldn't see it. So that is genuinely terrifying. On top of that, there's massive waves. So you're just going up and down the entire time, swinging left to right. Suddenly, your ship will be hit from the left side with a wave, and if you just happen to be on the right side, you'll notice that the fucking water line basically reaches your feet. It's like, holy shit! And then when the ship tilts backwards, suddenly you're looking over the side, and there's like 20 fucking meters of air in between you and the water. And you're like, what? I mean, that is fucking terrifying. And when you see those waves you keep hearing about, the ones that are higher than your ship, that's when you really, really get to grips with, oh my god, how terrifying the ocean really is. And trust me, a lot of kids that day, from the other class I was with, after that trip, they bailed. They were gone. They didn't want to have nothing to do with the sea anymore. But funnily enough, the group I was with, those 3 guys, funnily enough, I didn't really like those 2 guys that I was with, but at least those were one of the 2 guys that they did want. They were pretty serious about the whole education thing. They weren't the ones fucking around most of the time. So I was kind of okay with them. Still didn't like them, obviously, but sure. So the 3 of us make it. We get back to school after that week of absolute torment of people basically calling in sick. On board of a ship, they were faking sick calls, laying in bed pretending to be seasick because they were terrified to go out. Or most of the guys actually being seasick. The whole back end of the ship was turned into a med bay. But basically, it's like you walked into a fucking quarantine camp. You basically walk into the back end of the ship and you'll just find people laying there in droves, dozens of them, as if they were dying. They were just seasick and a little bit grudgy. But seasick is pretty shit, because I had that one of the first days and then I got over it. But some people never get over it. And trust me, there's no way to be more miserable than being seasick during a storm. Because if the one thing that makes you sick is bopping back and forth, then trust me, you really don't want to be on board of a ship during a storm, because that's all you're gonna be doing. But if you get over it, then you don't really have that problem anymore. And I got over it after a day, and that's basically the moment where most of the other kids started having issues. And because there were work shifts assigned to everyone on board, so it wasn't like it's like a luxury yacht cruise where you just sit on the deck watching out over the sun all day. No, your fucking ass is working. You're either cleaning, you're steering, you're doing maintenance in the engine room, or you're doing something related to learning your way out to learning how to sail a fucking ship. My favorite job was actually, on deck, where you're either cleaning the ship whilst you're going, or you're either sailing it. Obviously, sailing was the much more preferred thing to do, because that's where you really feel like a badass, standing on the back end of that ship, an actual sailor, just like those, basically a pirate ship from Black Flag, but then modernized. You're standing there with that steering wheel in your hand, you're like, oh yes, your ability.
Being a pirate is alright to me.
You start having ideas. You're like, yeah, I could take the whole ocean. But the funny thing is, obviously, they didn't just do that to give us shit to do and learn. No, the ship actually needed to be crewed whilst it was floating about. Obviously, you always see those. You always kind of get the idea that well, you don't really need more than about 5 people to function a ship, right? You got one guy steering, you got a couple of guys on navigation, one guy at the engine room. That's basically it, right? Nah, there's about a dozen people you need, one for every little fucking task. It's insane. The problem starts arising where you've got all these different dozens of things you need to be doing, and the majority of your work crew is dead. They're all laying at the back end of the ship wishing they're dead. They're not moving, so they're out of the game, meaning there's some fuck ton more work to do with not a lot of people. And if you're one of those few people still standing, then guess who's going to be doing all the work? God damn it. So me and my group, we were fucking badasses, doing fucking everything, running back and forth from the most critical things. I think I spent most time actually sailing the fucking ship itself, which I got really lucky all the time, because there were guys in my group that never barely touched the fucking steering wheel. I kind of felt bad for them, but I wasn't the one that dictated who did what. I was the captain of the actual ship, this old guy. And because ideally everyone would get equal amount of time, doing what they needed to do, and learning different things. But suddenly, with the help of the people done, we just weren't enough, basically. So we couldn't rotate as much as we wanted to, and even if we all rotated, there were still tasks being undone that really needed to be done. So if there was someone that was really good at one thing, the captain preferred to have that person be there at all times, meaning that it's more efficient. Because that's the one thing we really needed. We needed efficiency because we didn't have the numbers anymore.
Which is understandable.
Yeah, and so, funnily enough, that the one guy that was the best at fucking sailing and maneuvering and navigating the ship ended up being me, the one guy that the entire class hated. The 2 guys I was with, they hated my guts. Most of my class hated my guts. So when we got home and they were told all this, they fucking couldn't believe that that weird alien-like nerd, the guy that plays video games in his free time, but he's the one that actually got everyone back home. Obviously, it wasn't just me. Most of the time, the captain told me what to do. It was his fucking work. But in the eyes of the rest of the students, it was my fucking ass steering the ship. And I was not most of the time wasn't even an exaggeration, because obviously the captain and some other kid and then me rotated because well, the ship needs to sail 24/7, and you're not going to be able to stand on that deck 24/7 because you need to sleep. So we did it in threes. So I had my 8 hours, then someone else had his 8 hours, and then the captain has his 8 hours. So while the 3 of us got that ship home, most of the time, if one of us was on the job, the other 2 were fucking sleeping. So you couldn't really rely on them. Obviously, they have 1 or 2 hours that they wake up and they're just doing, relaxing, and the captain walked around, checking up on things. But that was just the 2 hours. The rest of your 8 hours, meaning the remaining 6 hours, you're on your fucking own. So there I was, feeling like an absolute badass. So aside all that, I go back to school, basically get treated like shit again, as if nothing ever happened. And eventually, the whole process of eliminating this class comes across. And so when I get pulled into that office, basically being told I was the shittest student they've ever seen, all I could think about was that one fucking trip and all of the friends I made in that Niveau 3 class. The guys that actually stayed on that school. And I almost wanted to tell my mentor, the one that actually sent me home, just go talk to anyone that was on that fucking ship that fucking week, and they'll tell you I should stay. But no, he just wanted me to fuck up because the guy really didn't like me, and I didn't like him either. And part of me was really happy I could finally walk away from that school and never go back again. But thinking on it now, yeah, I really wish I could have stayed or found a way to join that Niveau 3 class instead. Because I really would have maybe liked to keep doing that for the rest of my life. Because it was that exciting. So yeah, that was 3 years wasted in the end. Because obviously I did, it was a 2-year course and I did 1 year, I had to redo it because of, reasons.
Yeah.
I had a lot of shit happen in that period of my life as well. So yeah. Those 3 years ended up in absolute fucking nothing, and that wasn't pretty nice. My family wasn't happy with it either, and the one thing about my family is they'll never have my back on anything. So my father kicked me out of the house instantly. He believed the school story about me being a useless piece of shit. My mom wasn't happy with me. My grandma basically didn't want to see me, and that's the kind of people you have to rely on. So first I get my college taken away from me, my girlfriend dies, and then my family turns their back on me, all in the span of a few weeks. Oh my god, dude. If I were to pinpoint the fucking roughest time of my life, that would have been it. That right there, that was fucking rock bottom. It hasn't improved much since then, but at least it's improved. I mean, let's say it's more than improved, obviously. I had ups and downs, and a few significant downs along the way, but at the moment I've got nothing to complain about other than a few financial problems. But other than that, hey, I'm doing something I really want. I've got more than enough friends suddenly. I went from being that weird kid in class that nobody liked to being one of the popular kids in the span of a year, and I've got a more education coming that I'm really excited for. And on top of that, my family's, they're all doing good. The bond I have with my father is stronger than ever. My sister had a pretty rough patch lately, but she's getting on top of things, and suddenly shit's looking good again. Finally. And it just so happens to all culminate in probably the shittiest year of humankind, 2020 so far, is the year I'm kind of looking back and like, yeah, shit's going good. So I've got something coming, likely in the, later this year. But,
yeah, no, things will go down. No worries.
2020 gets to everyone eventually. But yeah.
Life is going to catch up with you.
Shit's weird. I mean, obviously after I did the whole C thing. After the C thing, that was basically, I had like a down year because they kicked me out halfway throughout the year. And in the other half of that year, that's actually when, funnily enough, my house decided to go commit a house fire. That was kind of a downer. I still fucking remember that one night we were playing Total War, weren't we?
Yep.
The fucking night before. That was crazy. Fucking woke up in the middle of a fucking blaze and like, oh for fuck's sake. The funnest moment of my life was fucking when I got out of that house. My dad's being transported off, and I've been questioned by every cop in the fucking neighborhood and every firefighter. I've been detailing them exactly, the layout of the house and where the fire is, and convince and kind of reassuring them there's no people in there, so you don't have to go in if you don't need to, because that's what firefighters do. If they know someone's in there, they will go in. But if there's no need, they won't. But they kind of need to know that.
Yeah.
And after that's all done, basically half an hour of me almost basically saving my own house, I look at it. And there's this blazing fucking fire coming out the roof, and I'm like, God damn it! This is the home I grew up in for most of my life. Holy shit! It's going to be gone soon. Holy shit! Luckily, as you know, they saved it, and I still go there every so often. So that house that never went anywhere. In fact, I'd say it's been improved upon.
And the car that eventually was saved as well.
Yeah, that was a good moment. But the funnest thing. Eventually, like one of my neighbors is like, "Hey, you can come inside. I'll give you something to drink, and you can kind of relax." It's like, yeah, I think I might like that because I had a whole like 2 hours of sleep. Woke up during a fire, so that was a good start in the morning. But that I was pretty wide awake.
And I remember what you told me as well, like what happened there in like that house.
Yeah. So I walk in, and the first thing is like, "Sup, morning? How you guys?" You won't believe the morning I've had. So and they had this small little kid. This kid is absolutely golden. He starts running around all crazy. Like, he has no idea what the fuck is going on outside. He's just running around, and his mom was like, "Yeah, he does that when there's people over. He gets all excited." It's like, oh. But eventually, he does figure out what's going on. So he walks over to the window and he starts looking out. And at this current time, the neighbor is gone. She's gone outside to talk to someone. I think my mom's outside and she's talking to my mom together with a firefighter detailing her side of the story. And I'm left. I don't know really what we was doing, but I know I was left alone with that kid for a while. So the kids start jumping up and down, like, look. So I will walk over and he points, at the firefighter's truck and my house at the moment being a blazing inferno. It's like, oh my god, that's so cool. And I'm like, oh dude, wow, that's really cool. Looking at my own house burning down. To this day, I'm questioning why the fuck I said that.
Probably just so that
kind of reassure the kid, like, yeah, just trying to play it off cool, like, yeah, that is pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, just to like not make that kid cry or something.
Yeah. Well, but still, I'm imagining this kid growing up and thinking back on that, it's like, wait a fucking minute. Like, Mom, yeah, wasn't that kid, the guy that was in the house? Yeah, that was him. Oh my god.
And he said the house fire was cool.
Yeah, and he's like, oh my god, I laughed at this kid's house burning down. Oh boy. Oh, that was, yeah. Not the greatest. And obviously, my family was a fucking wreck. My father usually is the one taking care of shit, but obviously he was out of the picture for a while. My mom kind of knew what she was doing and she did a lot. My sister really didn't know anything about anything and still doesn't. So she could be relied upon. My grandma was a wreck, an absolute fucking wreck. I still remember, sitting in the hospital and like, because this was my sister's birthday and we had an appointment later in the day with her. We had to kind of cancel that. So I'm like, my mom, give me the phone, I'll call grandma. And she's like, dude, you really don't want to call grandma. It's like, dude, I have to. she's like, no, listen to me. Let me do it, please. Let me do it. And I kind of get a little pissed, like, hey, listen, I was the one that was in the house. I had to escape the fire. At least let me call Grandma. And she just puts her foot down. And, no, you're not calling her. It's like, right, okay, sure. So she calls my grandma, and she puts it like on, well, not on speaker, but we were in like this really small, isolated room. So it was pretty fucking. There wasn't any fucking noise whatsoever. So we all heard the conversation. So she basically explains pretty nicely what happened, and my grandma just explodes in with crying. She's almost fucking screaming, fucking. She was absolutely petrified about what happened. And part of me was really thankful that I wasn't the one calling her, because I would have fucking cursed her apart. I would have gotten so fucking angry and frustrated. Like, listen here, you old cunt, you weren't the fucking one running for your life. You've got nothing to complain about. We're all safe. What are you being a drama queen about? Obviously, thinking back on it now, it was a pretty overreacted reaction, but I still, it's not nothing learning that your family's just been through hell. So sure, a little bit of a drama queen, but I'll at least understand it. Still won't really agree with it, but well. But yeah, for the most part, it was me and my mom salvaging the situation. We were the ones that got my stuff out. We were the ones that took care of the house and made sure it was renovated. We weren't the ones that saved the car. That was my dad's friend that got that. Well, that was a pretty cool moment, because for one, my dad has his best friend. He's basically our family Roman Pierce. If you were to see Roman Pierce in person and you put him next to this guy, it's identical. Personality-wise and looks-wise, it could literally be that guy, for all I know. I still have my suspicions. But yeah, if you put him and my dad together, they are fucking hilarious. It's like watching a comedy show live right in front of you. This guy, we love him. He's absolutely amazing. But we hadn't seen him for at least a year when the accident happened. None of us had his number. My dad had his number, but his phone kind of went all melty. All burny, scratchy. It was gone. There was nothing left of that phone, definitely not a fucking number. Couldn't make a call on that thing. So it took a while trying to track this guy down. And after, I think it was a couple of days later, my grandma came over and we went shopping because, well, I lost all my fucking clothes that day. I really desperately needed a fresh set of new clothes, including shoes. I was wearing fucking sandals. Not even just sandals, but the actual, like the slippers kind of thing. They're awful to walk on. I don't know how people do it. And I wanted to kill myself every time I set my foot out the fucking door. But yes, I needed a new pair of shoes. But on the way, well, we walked to the mall, my mom calls me up. And she's like, hey, we found that friend. Like, oh, really? Yeah, he's coming over right now. I was like, fucking get goosebumps. I hadn't seen this guy in a fucking year. I got fucking goosebumps. Like, oh god, really, we found him. Oh, thank god for that. So we go shopping, and when we get, but by the time we get home, the guy's already inside. We figured my sister wanted to go home immediately, but I kind of figured, listen, I really need those clothes, and two, it's probably a good idea to have my mom kind of explain the situation beforehand, calm and collectively, before we come in, because I was afraid something would happen once we come in, and that was the actual thing that happened. We walked into the room after going on a shopping spree. And none of us said a word. Me and my sister walk in, we look at him, and this guy just breaks down, dude. He gets up, he starts crying and just hugs the both of us. And my sister breaks up and starts crying, and I fucking can't handle it anymore. Even I loosen a few tears, and we just stand there hugging each other, absolutely devastated. But that's the kind of reaction I was afraid would happen. So it was probably a good idea to have the situation explained to him by someone that kind of had his shit together. Before we came in, because that's the reaction I was afraid of, and so that's exactly what happened. This guy, basically he was a fucking superhero at the time, because the next thing he did was we went to visit my dad in the hospital together, and this was during the time in which my dad, he wasn't awake, he was kept in like a artificial coma. We leave, we get into his car, and we noticed that suddenly he's pulling up on the highway, the absolute opposing direction of where we live. So both me and my sister, we both acknowledged the fact that we're sitting in a car with a guy we haven't seen in years. For all we know, he could be fucking abducting us, but neither of us say a word. We're completely fine with this situation. This random black guy taking us to the middle of nowhere. We're completely fine by this. And he pulls up on a fucking clothes store. But this wasn't just your run-of-the-mill, ordinary cheap clothes store. It was branded shit. It was like one of those, not Gucci, one of those other ones, but pretty fucking expensive store. And he's like, listen, you're gonna go in there, and you're gonna grab whatever the fuck you want. And I'm like, are you sure? Whatever the fuck you want. So sure, we walk in, and we start shopping, picking up things left and right. And the moment, you know, we start showing off what we've got, and we walk over to the cashier, and this guy whips out his wallet, and he just dramatically, as if he were playing fucking GTA 5, just whips out like a fucking dozen $50 bills and just throws them on the fucking counter like he's eating a deck of cards. Like that was the most, that was the funniest, most useless display of wealth I've ever seen in my life. That was like it came straight out of fucking GTA. But hey, he was spending money for me, so I wasn't complaining. Yeah, so that was kind of fun. But obviously, on top of all that, we really still weren't feeding the greatest, because for all we knew, the house was a total loss. My dad really wouldn't pull through. And the problem is that if you're the one trying to keep everyone else afloat, there's really no one taking care of you, and that's the problem I had. Me and my mom both, we kind of helped each other, but we were doing the lion's share of the work. So we were kind of helping everyone else, but no one really was looking out for us, aside from, you know, my dad's friend, but he wasn't there every single day, obviously. He wasn't living with us. We'll see him often enough, but you know, most of the time it's still us. And if you're the one that people are depending upon, you can't afford to break down or stop functioning. So with that mindset, that was the last, those were those months. For me, that was as if I was a robot just working on fucking instinct. Like it's a program just doing what I'm meant to do, and not allowing anything to cloud my mind to just get that fucking job done. So, and in the end, it'll all pay off, and it did. And one of the things that got me through was one of my friends, this cute girl from America as well. She was one of these pretty eccentric kind of, you know, the kind of depressed kind of type. She was amazingly sweet and nice, but it was obvious that she had her share of issues as well. And
usually with everyone too.
Yeah, but yeah, usually, but this one was a bit out there. There was some serious shit going on there, for as far as I remember. This wasn't just, oh, I feel a little bit down today. There was, don't really remember exactly what it was, because the problem is that we didn't really talk about it, because those few months that I was basically depending on her for my support. I was holding my family together, and she was the one holding me together. At one point, this girl disappears off the face of the planet for at least a few weeks, and that kind of concerns the fuck out of me, obviously, because one, I kind of need her right now, and two, I'm kind of getting worried here. What's happened? Well, this girl killed herself in that time, and eventually I start realizing it took a while for it to click. It's like, oh my god, I really should have helped her, shouldn't I? I was too busy focusing on my family, and she was too busy focusing on me. Neither of us were looking at her, and I wouldn't say that was the reason, because it wasn't the reason. All those other things that happened to her were the reason, but we could have prevented this.
Hello, stars.
And we didn't, and neither, and well, maybe she noticed, but I sure as fuck didn't. So, but when I realized that, you know, this girl had committed suicide, I felt, and I still feel guilty as fuck about it. Because I still feel like I could have probably done something to help prevent that from happening.
I feel that, yeah.
And that, at the moment in which I really didn't need it, I completely lost it. This was still halfway through the family disaster period. I still needed to keep my head up, and I was a fucking wreck. Obviously, we got there in the end, but I'll tell you that one, I was walking on the edge right there. That was a pretty dark fucking period as well. I mean, about just as dark as the one during the whole C school thing, but in a different way, I suppose. So yeah, I'll still forever feel guilty about that, knowing that, you know, There was probably nothing I could have done, because if I let go of my family for a while to help her, maybe the things in my family wouldn't have worked out the way they have. Maybe my dad wouldn't have helped, or maybe the house wouldn't have been renovated, or whatever. So maybe it at the end end the way it did for a reason, but I'll never really feel comfortable with it.
I feel that, yeah.
Obviously. I don't really need to explain myself this once. But yeah, that was pretty shit. Obviously, you'll know that was pretty much it. That was the last really dark period of my life, I'd say. And even then, I don't really think back on it too heavily anymore, because well, I have the luxury of saying that it all worked out in the end. If my dad had died, then I probably would have had a lot of issues thinking back on that time, because it was all a good ending basically. Then I don't really have a lot of problem thinking about it. People often ask me like, aren't you traumatized like hell? I'm like, no, not at all, really. In fact, I'm mildly proud of what we accomplished, and I'm kind of glad it happened, because it did. I was a completely different person back then. I really wasn't as confident at all.
Things like that tend to change someone completely.
Yeah, so in a way, obviously, I still would have preferred it not to happen, but
well, yeah.
In a way, I'm glad that it did, because it did change me significantly enough to kind of probably give me that one kick on my ass I really needed to really get shit done with my life. And that's the benefits of having that right now, so where I'm actually getting shit done with my life for once, doing the things I enjoy. Obviously, I still miss the people that we've lost along the way, but fuck, some things are just not meant to last, or you couldn't really change anything about it.
Yeah.
And if I've had to learn one thing about having to deal with all that kind of bullshit and all those hardships, is that you can't afford to take pity on yourself. If you do that, you're dead. Obviously, you don't ignore it. You don't stow it away in the deepest fucking pit of your heart and never think about it anymore, because it will come back to haunt you and destroy you anyway. You can't hold it back. But you shouldn't let it completely dictate your life. You should be working to get over it and move on with your life. Don't get dragged down in the mud, basically, because you only bury yourself deeper. And I know it sounds really fucking cliche, but yeah, that's really the way it is. I've had conversations with people in my nail school basically confirming this. Like, they went through shit, and they will be the first to tell you this exact thing. Like, listen, you can't afford to take pity on yourself. That's when you start drowning. If you're on a sinking ship, you don't start sitting crying because, oh, woe is me, I'm on a sinking ship. You get the fuck off the ship first, then you can start crying.
Yeah, first get yourself in a better position, and then...
Yeah.
Because otherwise it will just all keep breaking down even further.
Yeah. Well, I've had this, obviously, because this was the mistake I made, and obviously why I know it. I had that breakdown eventually, because in the period of my life, like I told you, when we had this whole fire thing and the recovery of it, stowing all the emotions away was exactly what I did in order to get the shit done. And it did come back to bite me in the ass, because at the moment, the first year of this new school was a fucking disaster. And that's when I started noticing that suddenly I wasn't feeling the greatest anymore. And eventually we pinpointed that was the aftermath of everything coming back to me. Suddenly I had nothing to worry about anymore, and my guard finally went down, and in came all the bad emotions and the traumas and so on. So that kind of ruined my first year there, which is why I'm still here at the moment. I had to redo the first year, which is kind of upsetting, but well. I'm finally, securing this diploma. I've got my exam coming up the 2nd of June, my final exam, which I know I'm gonna make. I'll make it, I'll get my diploma, and I'll move on to the next course. I'm finally in a position where I can say, I've moved on, it's behind me, I'm good. Because, yeah, finally. Which is kind of funny, because it just so happened to be 2020, and it's the most unluckiest year humanity's ever had. But oh well. So funnily enough, my dad's really big in Chinese horoscopes. I don't really give a shit about the horoscopes left or right, but yeah, he's big into them. Probably the reason I'm not into it is because I'm a rat in the Chinese horoscope, which isn't the most exciting animal, given the fact that my sisters are dragons. Yeah, thanks God, I'll be a rat, thank you. Well, the start of 2020, my dad loudly proclaimed, "Oh look, it's the Chinese year of the rat." And he looks at me like, "Guess you're gonna be making it then, huh? You got a good year going." So of course it's the most unluckiest year of humanity, because yeah, that's the year of the rat. That's my curse. But yeah, I will say, is take a step back and look back on my own positioning at the moment. I'm like, yeah, no, I am starting to do good. So yeah, I will believe that the core of his story, like this is a lucky year. Yeah, it's a lucky year for me, but not for anyone else. This one's all my game. Oh, but fuck, dude. Obviously, one thing I forgot to mention, but really because I don't really when I tell this story about the basically the hostage situation in my cab this one time when I was doing the taxi thing, people kind of tend to look at me like, "Oh, dude, that must have been horrible." Like, it kind of was, but honestly, I just look back at this hilarious thing that happened to me this one time.
Yeah, because you've already had way more happening to you, so
I know people would have lost their shit in that situation. And meanwhile, I was just laying there, regretting every life decision I've ever made up, leading me up to this point. I wasn't even mad, I was just disappointed with myself. It's like, why did I let this happen? God damn it. Yeah, I was twisting this one guy's nipples in the dead of night. Like, yeah, this is my life, holy shit.
Well done, Duncan, you made it this far in life.
Well done. I really wish I did kill myself when I was 16, god damn it. But yeah, when I think about that, all I do is kind of laugh about it, like, oh my fucking god. It goes a long way, saying that, I was literally being held hostage with a weapon, and I wasn't scared at all, I was just disappointed. That was the state of mind I was in. Which probably is a bad thing when I look back on it. That's not a healthy reaction, but it's a fucking hilarious one to be sure. Compared to all the other shit I've went through, that one's a highlight. That was fun compared to the other shit. Oh no. I still remember, calling my boss. He picks me up in his van and we drive back to my car. And this naked guy is still sitting in my car, completely hurt over the fact that this driver ran off on him. He's like, "God, that motherfucker ran off on me." But meanwhile, we're looking at him, butt naked, sitting in my car. It's like, wonder why he ran off. And I'm looking at him. He doesn't recognize me in the slightest, even though I ran away from him 10 minutes ago. He was trying to fucking molest me earlier, but he didn't recognize me anymore. Fucking, that was a crazy guy. Holy hell. It's kind of weird when you have to tell a story like that under the category. Look at this hilarious thing that happened to me. That's not the way most people would describe that.
No.
Oh, good god. But yeah, fun times. Fun times.
Best times.
Oh, totally. I might start, because obviously the whole corona thing it's not like I'm too worried about the whole corona thing. I'm not worried about getting sick. I mean, I don't want to get sick, but I know that if I do get sick, I'm not the target audience of that disease, so I'll probably survive, so I'm not too fussed about it. The one thing I'm kind of fussed about is the fact that, I got fucked out of my job, so that's kind of a lot of money that I really did need. And it's kind of staying inside all day with a family that you kind of don't agree with most of the time kind of dampens your spirits. And the whole idea of the streaming thing I had in mind that I really wanted to do, it kind of it didn't fall apart, because I'm still going to do it. It's just not really feeling it at the moment. The whole you had this whole elaborate idea of just doing streams, and I'll be recording it and using the highlights to edit, to basically train myself in video editing, to basically get my a little bit of a head start for the education I'll be doing. But fucking hell, I just can't be bothered at the moment. I'm surrounded by people I kind of dislike every single day, so that's really not a good way to get motivated, I suppose. Meanwhile,
not really,
funny
no.
enough, while everyone else is staying inside, I get dragged off by my sister and my dad every single day, walking the dog, going to the park, trying to do whatever to get out of the house and get away from my family, because we're all going stir crazy here. Everything's closed, you can't go anywhere, you can't do fun shit. So all of the friends I made at school are gone. Don't talk to them anymore, so that's kind of put a damper on things, to be sure. I'm still obviously going to get back into it. but I just don't know when. Oh, 'cause the last thing I want to do is jump into it for the sake of doing it, as opposed to me just wanting to do it out of the sheer fun of it. Because that was the original idea. Because I know that when I start forcing myself to do things, something in me just refuses. After a while, it just gives up.
Yeah, I know that.
If there's one thing I'm good at, it's giving up on things, and I've realized that skill of mine.
I mean, I'm enjoying this still. Like, I'm honestly like, because of this, I'm actually exploring new games. Like, for me, this is a good way to like explore new games and explore new ideas.
I mean, that's the whole point. If you enjoy something, then the whole grind and repetition just doesn't wear you down as much, if at all, really. Obviously, there's a few things that I really have enjoyed most of my life, and I still do them, like the whole writing thing. Obviously, I've never finished anything because shit just finds a way to get in between it. But I still do writing. I still haven't given up on that, even though I've done it for God knows how long now, and I'll still continue to do so. And even the video editing thing, I haven't done it a lot. Obviously, I don't have a lot of experience, but every time I've done it, I was absolutely motivated to keep going and make the most out of the video I was doing. And the few videos I did make, despite my lack of experience, the amount of editing that went in them, it shows. So yeah, I definitely do enjoy that. So I'm looking forward to getting into that new course and new education, start learning shit. Getting really good at it. And obviously, when I'm doing it, once I'm actually doing the whole the education thing and running that course and learning all the shit, it's a big likelihood that that's when I'll really be doubling down on the whole streaming thing and actually recording my own shit. That's obviously because I'll be doing it every day. I'll be learning new stuff, and I'll be wanting to use the new stuff I learned in my own videos and my own work, obviously.
Yep.
But the whole idea was to start doing it before I start, so I kind of have something to rely on. I'm not stepping into that course completely blind. Luckily, we still have a whole summer ahead of us, because the summer vacation still hasn't started. Meanwhile, it's kind of feeling like summer vacation already. So yeah, I'll pick it up somewhere, but I'm starting to kind of get small tinglies of starting to want to do it again. But I'll wait just a little while longer for me to absolutely be sure that I don't just want to do it for the sake of doing it, but I really I want to do it because I really just want and like to do it. That's when I feel comfortable doing it, because the last thing I want is get demotivated on this one subject right before I'm going to sign up for a course for me doing that 3 more years. If I get demotivated at around that period where I start, that's not going to be a great start of the year, isn't it?
No, that's not going to be a great start.
Exactly. But I will be doing it again. And there's one game I figured I definitely do want to stream, and I've talked to you about it every so often, which is this new Microsoft Flight Simulator. Because I see a lot of streaming potential in that game. Not just playing the game in general, not making like a let's play out of this, but this is the perfect game for weird shit, weird shenanigans, weird ass conversations like the ones we had in the crew, where we're just trying to fly a plane across the fucking planet, just talking shit about everything. That's like absolute amazing podcast material, basically. That's in a sense kind of what we did. We just play a game, we didn't really focus on it anymore. We just started talking shit. Yeah.
But that's kind of a
job. Has a lot of potential, but on top of that, it has like challenge potential. Like, right, so sure, we can try to fly. We can try to make a flight across the whole planet, like just circumnavigate the whole fucking thing in one stream or some shit like that, or going to visit like your own hometown, or visit like national landmarks or some shit. Like make a tour of it. Like that's a pretty cool fucking thing I'd like to stream, or basically teaching myself how to fly a plane, going through that process by making like I can imagine taking a whole stream, teaching myself how to fly a plane and every single fucking button of it, or even multiple streams, trying to get that thing narrowed down, and then making like a highlight video of it so you can actually see that progress. That'd be kind of fucking cool.
If there is any progress, at least.
I mean, if there is any progress. I mean, I've been trying to get into any kind of flight simulator to kind of get used to it, and I've been told by people that played the new Flight Simulator 2020's beta that it's basically a flight simulator for gamers. So it's not, it is a flight sim, but it's less complicated than you might think. So it's a bit mellowed down, and a lot of actual flight sim veterans, they're pretty pissed about that. But I'm kind of, yeah, that's pretty. I'm down for that. That's definitely the experience I want. I want my realism, but I also still want to handle it like a game. I want to have fun and relax.
Yeah, kind of like how Euro Truck Simulator 2 is and such.
Yeah, but in order to prepare myself for this, I found myself a flight sim that's well, it's free of charge initially. You get the flight, you get access to the game with 2 aircraft, and that's it. You get your 1 map and access to the multiplayer and everything. But obviously you're restricted to the modules you have. But that's free. On top of that, you can buy maps and other aircraft, that are specialized, and they'll cost you actual money, and they'll cost you good money as well. They're not cheap. You can basically, 1 aircraft is basically the price of a whole game, $60.
Jesus.
But that's because, and I'll reach you out. There's one I actually ended up buying because I fell in love with it the moment I saw it, and I really want to master this thing. Let's see. Let me just paraphrase and read out the about this content page, just the first few phrases.
Okay.
This is detailing one of the American fighter aircraft, the F-18C Hornet, commonly known as the F-18, to clarify that. So, our Hornet is the culmination of more than 40 man-years of intense research, technology development, art creation, and groundbreaking coding. The Hornet brings the first true multi-role fighter to the skies of DCS world with equality, impressive air-to-surface and air-to-air capabilities. The blah blah Hornet is initially being released as an open beta, and then more features will be added, blah blah. Meaning, this is the product of 40 years of investigating this aircraft and making sure it is as real as you can get it. If you ever want to fly an actual jet fighter, this is the game you'll want. And this is different for each and every aircraft. Obviously, every aircraft has a lot of work put into it, but because they've got licensing deals, and it's a lot of it's obviously a lot of research that goes into this as opposed to just light research. But it's different for each aircraft, where some of them, they don't have all the details exactly right because they couldn't get their hands on an actual aircraft to get tests done or some shit like that. The Hornet is the one I know of, that's the one that went so much fucking work into it. They got their game developers in actual jets to simulate, exactly, every sound that thing makes when it goes to a turn, or every button is exactly modeled, sounding, and does exactly what it does in real life. The aircraft handles exactly like it. Every noise you hear is what you would hear in the actual frame. Not just the beeping sounds, but the actual, the engines, they make the sound, the same spin-up noise, the same spool-up noise, the fucking brakes, the tire squealing is exactly the way it would sound like. It is absolutely ludicrous how realistic they make this thing feel and look. Which is why, when I heard about it, I just needed one. Even if I'll never fucking master this thing, I know I need this thing. And luckily at the time, they just released this new amazing DLC. It's basically a super carrier. The thing map builders basically use. Think of it like Arma 3, where you're building your own map. You're placing objects in there. Now you can place a super carrier in there that functions and drives exactly like one IRL. And you can take off and land on it the same way actual fighter pilots would. So it's definitely interesting. I won't be buying it though. At least not until it goes on sale. Because this thing is about $40. Which,
Jesus Christ.
Which just for me isn't worth it. Even though I know it's priced the way it is because of the extensive, stupid fucking amount of research and work that went into it. So I definitely appreciate that and understand it, but it's still a bit too much money for something it's a bit of a niche thing to buy, basically.